a Rabbinic Anthology selected with an introduction by C.G. Montefiore and H.Loewe. Remember, at the end of Herbert Lowe's introduction, I have appended the part that explains the abbreviations. Continuing 1423, that is by dedicating to him gleaning, forgotten sheaves, corners of the field, tithes, dough, by making a booth and a urulab, the three-plant wand thing, by shofar, horn, and phylacteries, and fringes, by feeding the poor and giving drink to the thirsty. If you have the wherewithal, you are obliged to do all these things. But if not, then you are not obliged. But as regards the honor of father and mother, you must honor them whether you are rich or poor, even if you have to beg for them at the doors of other men's houses. T.J. Qid 1, Section 7, Folio 61b, line 18, T.J. Pa'a 1, Section 1, Folio 15c and 15d, line 35. H.L.'s note, the remark of R. Abun and such passages as 1419, 1420, 1424 might create the impression that the rabbis attached undue importance to money, but they were realists and understood the mentality of their flock. To most human beings, money is a potent attraction, and a preacher can utilize this attraction for moral purposes as R. Abun has done. H.L.'s note, it is noteworthy that the stock example of the highest reverence of parents is taken not from a Jew, but from a heathen. Well, I wouldn't use the word heathen, but, doesn't mean a polytheist, though. But 1424, an Israelite who is zealous for the honor of parents, what is his reward? The honor of parents, our rabbis tell us, is one of those commands for the fulfillment of which man receives the fruit in this world, while the stock, the capital, is reserved for him in the world to come. R. Abihu said, his disciples asked R. Eliezer the Great, wherein consists the honor of father and mother, i.e., how far does it extend? He replied, go and see what Dama B. Natina did. His mother was a foolish person, and she slapped him in the presence of his fellows, and all he said was, let that suffice thee, my mother. Our rabbis say that some of our wise men came to him to buy a precious stone in the place of one which had fallen out and been lost from the breastplate of the high priest. He lived at Ascalon, and they agreed with him to give 1,000 gold pieces for the stone. He went in and found his father asleep, with his legs stretched out upon the box which contained the jewel. He would not disturb him, and came back without it. When the wise men perceived this, they thought that he wanted more money, and they offered 10,000 gold pieces. When his father woke up, he went in and brought out the jewel. The wise men offered him the 10,000 pieces, but he replied, far be it from me to make a profit from honoring my father. I will take only the 1,000 which we had agreed on. And what reward did God give him? Our rabbis say that in that very year, his cow bore a red calf, which he sold for more than 10,000 gold pieces. The translation at one place follows the text of T.J. Pa'a 1, Section 1, Folio 15c, line 15, Deuteronomy R. Devarim 115, selection, the comment by H.L. The red calf is the red heifer, free from blemish, out of the ashes of which the waters of purification were prepared. Numbers 19, 1-22, and 21, 21-24. Remember that if you total up what was said about the Israelites, they sacrificed a pair to dedicate the temple 3 times, and then after the appearance of Judaism, or what we could call Judaism, it wasn't historically called that, but then you have another 3 times. Well, then you had but most people are only going to count the stationary temple periods. According to Arm Air Parah 3:5, 7 heifers in all were so prepared, 1 by Moses, 1 by Ezra, and 5 by Ezra's successors. According to the rest of the rabbis, 7 were prepared after Ezra. In any case, the rite was very rarely performed, and in view of the difficulty of finding a perfectly red calf, even a wen was enough to disqualify an animal. Parah 2:2. The price of a suitable beast was very high, and the owner could get anything that he asked. It will be noted that Dama ben Natina was a heathen, and the Mishnah, Parah 2:1, dissents from R. Eliezer's view that the heifer may not be bought from Gentiles. Well, one thing that you should probably consider is that the cow, for example, should be raised properly. So if they didn't drug the cow, then, Among the Samaritans, the rite of the heifer survived for long since it has fallen out of use. They consider themselves to be in a state of perpetual impurity, and they will not, in consequence, write scrolls of the Pentateuch, as the ashes of the red heifer were not used after the end of the 15th century. No scroll of the Bible has been written on parchment since that date. Page 104 of M. Gaster, The Samaritans, Schweitz, Lectures 1926. Since the striking rarity of Samaritan scrolls contrasted with the ubiquity of those written by Jews. H.L. Snow. Well, couldn't you say that the Samaritan community was earlier than the Jews, if you're going to make that argument? Because if they accept the books of Moses, all the ones attributed to him, the rabbis, I may add, had much reverence for old age, though sometimes age is interpreted to mean knowledge of the Torah. 1425, he who welcomes an old man is as if he welcomed the Shekinah. Gen R. Toledot, 63:6, finished the page 684. 1426, Bear 8, Bab B, 14b. R. Judah said, be careful to honor an old man who has forgotten his learning involuntarily, i.e. from old age, for both the second tables and fragments, the first tables, were placed in the ark. Bear 8b, Bab B, 14b, 1427, TJ Bab Q, 8, section 8, folio 6c, line 13. Resh Lakish said, he who puts an old man to shame must give him, or must pay him, a fine in proportion to the special shame he has inflicted, because he is an old man. A man once insulted R. Judah B. Chanina, who was old. The fact was reported to Resh Lakish, who fined the man a pound weight of gold. See note 14, TJ Bab Q 88, folio 6c, line 13. Now you can correct even parents, but you don't do it with insult. You can definitely, all this stuff where your parents can hit you for unjustifiably, or get you to give up on what you need, and when it's just what they want or something like that, it's, that's kind of ridiculous. But the rabbis interpreted the ordinance in Leviticus 19:32, thou shalt rise up before the aged, very strictly, and in accordance with their manner, they like to discuss casuistically how often one must rise up if an old man passes and passes before one, whether and how often one must interrupt one's studies to rise up, and many similar minutiae. H.L.'s note, the discussions of the rabbis ranged far and wide. This instance is as much an exercise in logic, that deductive logic mostly, as in manners or ethics, more especially the other examples of when to rise up and not to rise up, which have been quoted, are such an exercise. H.L.'s note, 1428, T.J. Bick, 3, Section 3, Folio 65C, line 62. Arm Air, when he saw even an old Amharz would rise up, for he said, it is not for nothing that he has prolonged his days. Long life is a divine blessing, therefore the man, however ignorant, must have done some good deeds. T.J. Bick, 3, Section 3, Folio 65C, line 62, 1429. It is written, thou shalt rise up before the hoary head, and honor the face of the old man, and fear thy God, I am the Lord. Leviticus 19:32. Remember, Lord is a stand-in for God as a verb and noun, establishing, increasing existence. One might think one must honor a bad old man. But by old man is meant wise man, as it says, gather me 70 elders, Numbers 11:16. R. Joseph, the Galilean, says, by old man is meant a man who has acquired wisdom, words left out. What is honoring? It means that one should not sit in the seat of the old man or speak before he has spoken or contradict him, in his mere opinion. Thou shalt rise up. One might think that one might shut one's eyes when he passes, and if one had not seen him, this is a matter which is entrusted to the heart. That is why it says, thou shalt fear thy God. R. Simeon B. Elazar asked, how do we know that an old man must not make himself a nuisance by passing and repassing, so that people have constantly to get up? Because it says, old man, and thou shalt fear thy God. The old man too must fear God. R. Isse B. Judah said, thou shalt rise up before the hoary head. This means that all old men are included, i.e. whether they are wise or not. Kid 32b, Sifra 91a. And so when we consider the rulings, the causality of the whole thing is definitely something that should always be considered.